Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Did you all enjoy the little Viva spirit last night with the dancing? Those of you who left early did not get the pleasure of seeing Bill take his shoes off to do moves I have never seen before.
Never seen? I mean, never seen in the light of the day. Is that what you meant?
Yeah. So we first want to thank you and Sheila for the opportunity to be here and to share with you. And we've been talking about what to talk about and how to do this. And I actually said to Bill that I know that many of you, we've heard through the years that many people have had amazing healings of physical symptoms because of things that Bill has shared with them. We've heard stories of that even this last couple of days. And this area of physical healing is really, in my mind, Bill's to speak to, and not so much mine. My interests lie in other areas. So I'm actually going to step off the stage and not try to take away the space that he really needs to say something meaningful in the short time that we have. But in talking about this, he did ask me to share a few things. And so I'm going to start by doing that. We did both have the good fortune of knowing and meeting Sydney Banks. We like Dick and also have the certificates of competency, but I'm not sure exactly what that means. The last time I heard Sid speak, he was desperately ill with cancer. And I remember thinking as he walked down the stage in Victoria that I didn't know how he was going to make it through the conversation because he looked weak and sick. And yet I was very struck as he sat down and started to speak from his wisdom that it was like the body dropped away and what I saw and experienced was extraordinary, clear, beautiful teaching. And the body was not a limitation to what came through from the soul. But there was a point in the school where a long-standing three principles teacher stood up and said to Sid, "Sid, could you speak to us about physical healing?" And Sid was very quiet and he said, "No. That's not what I'm here to talk about. What I'm here to talk about is spiritual and psychological healing." And I think yesterday, for those of you who didn't get to hear the beautiful discussion of physical healing that Dawn and Lily posted, I'd like to bring a little bit of that forward. I think they spoke beautifully in their experiences about what we're really after is seeing the spiritual as deeply as we can. And that sometimes in doing that, there is an enormous physical healing. But there's a lot of mystery in that. And one of the things that I get concerned about is that when we talk about physical healing, people start to think that the physical status of the body is somehow a measure of enlightenment. And that is totally false. Bill certainly is. Sid was certainly the most enlightened human being I've ever encountered. And yet he suffered a physical illness and he died. We're all going to die of something. So I would ask that as you listen, be aware of any thoughts of self-blame and know that those are only coming from your personal thought system, that at the spiritual level there is no blame and judgment. And I want to share an experience. I was really surprised that this came up to share last night, but it was very compelling. And so I'm going to honor that, but I don't necessarily see totally the reason for sharing it. I've never shared this publicly. When I was married to my first husband, we decided we wanted to have a child. And so we were doing what you need to do frequently to have a child. It was great. And one night we had made love and we're snuggling and he had fallen asleep and I was just sort of laying in that lovely bliss. And suddenly I saw something enter the room and it looked like a translucent pink bubble, kind of a shimmery orb. And it moved toward me. It was clearly pink, clearly translucent, and it had a beautiful white light in the middle of it. And I watched it come toward me, and I remember kind of like, well, what in the world is that? And then it slammed into my body. And slamming sounds like a violent word. It was just more the most incredible explosion from within of joy. And I knew I had become pregnant. And I always thought that's a really strange phenomenon. It's not something I want to share with anyone. That sounds really airy-fairy and woo-woo and out there. I was writing about it in my book, and I only recently discovered that that's called conscious conception, and that it's actually not a rare phenomenon. It's not universal, but it's not rare. Well, fast forwarding from that experience, 2 weeks later I got terribly sick. And I went to the emergency room because I was in such pain. And the doctor said, well, you've got pleurisy. I had developed an upper respiratory infection. I was coughing so hard that I'd inflamed my chest wall. And he said, I want to put you on some medication. Whoa. Would the medication you choose be different if you knew I was pregnant? Well, he said, absolutely. And I said, well, I'm pregnant. And he said, how far along are you? I said, exactly 2 weeks. And he said, and how do you know that? This was before early pregnancy testing, 35 years ago, actually, as of November 1st. And I said, well, I just know. And he looked at me like, yeah, you just know. And so I'm going to do a pregnancy test, Mrs. Pfeffer. And we'll see if you're pregnant, we'll use a different medication. So the next day, this young doctor calls me clearly in wonder and says, well, the good news is you're pregnant. Congratulations. And you're exactly 2 weeks along based on the hormone levels in your body. How did you know that? Well, I wasn't going to tell him the story about the pink balloon. So the point of telling that story, I think, is that I only recently realized that I got to consciously experience the moment that a soul embodied. And it was beautiful. And recently someone said to me, our bodies are our first love relationship. Our bodies are our first love relationship. And I have been in wonder for months since I heard that, just sort of reflecting on the implications of that. And seeing at a deeper and deeper level that our bodies are our souls in motion. They are manifestations of our souls in motion. And yet, how often do we not care for them in that way, from that space? I have had 2 serious accidents in my life. One a fall off a ladder and one a bike accident. And within 5 minutes of having both those accidents, a thought came through my head, and the thought was, Linda, you're tired. Go take a rest. And what did I do? Oh no, I need to finish painting this wall. Oh no, I need to have 10 miles registered on my bike today. And shortly thereafter suffered accidents that have had lifelong consequences. Now, I think that's just part of my learning. And the symptoms that I still have in my body as a result of those accidents have become beautiful whispers of wisdom, reminding me, go slow, take it easy, rest. There's nothing that's so urgent that it has to be done by pushing against the body. So that's really all I have to share.
Are you sure you weren't going to just stay with me?
I'm absolutely.
See, I know that 90% of you right now are saying, why do we have to hear from him? Can't we just have 50 more minutes of that? And that would be fine with me, really. There's a day that it wouldn't be, but it really would be fine. So if you change your mind, honey, and you got another 20 minutes, please share it with us. It'd be like, I feel like, and the next act after you've heard from the Beatles is Bill Pettit. You could see the excitement in the audience. Have people seen that movie Yesterday? Yeah. It's cute, isn't it? Yeah. It's sweet. It's really sweet. It's really sweet. Well, it's interesting because a lot of what you said, Linda, this morning as I was getting up, and Linda wanted to rest just a little longer, what came to me was that the symptoms that we have, that we call symptoms, both psychologically and physiologically, are love letters. That's what came to me this morning. They're love letters. And without understanding, we don't experience them as love letters. We get frightened. Some of you have heard me tell this story. You can tell I'm having trouble. The teleprompter in the back broke. And I'm not able to read it from here because I don't have my glasses, so I'm going to have to just talk off the cuff. I think that's funny, huh? Some of you from the United States might know a comedian whose name is Stephen Wright. And he stands in his blue jeans and he talks real slow. And he comes out and he says, you know, I got a postcard from my brother today. It was a picture of Earth. He said, wish you were here. I went to the store today and bought some used paint. It was in the shape of a house. While I was there, I bought some powdered water. Just not sure what to add to it. Anyway, you didn't come to hear Steve tonight. But if you need entertainment next year, you know, yeah. So, I thought Dick and yesterday, I was very touched. I always am touched, as many of us are, or not all. At just the simplicity and the clarity from which he spoke. And Sid spoke, he said, when the answers are simple, it's the spirit. When they're complicated, it's the intellect. It's worth remembering when things seem complicated. I realized that this is a little bit like Stephen Wright, but what came to me was that we're the only creatures, human beings, are the only of God's creatures that goes faster when it's lost. Would you say that's true? Both in our head, activating our personal mind, and often in our body, tripping over things, knocking things over, and breaking things. One day in Michigan, we moved to Phoenix 2.5 years ago for grandchildren, and it's been wonderful. And people say, isn't the heat terrible? I said, well, it's, you have to be careful, but at least there's nothing in the winter you have to worry about sliding into a telephone pole, or a car, like stuff called snow that we dealt with for so long. I watched a chipmunk one morning on a Saturday morning on our front porch, and he stood, how they stand like this, for 12 to 15 minutes, and he did not move. And then when he knew where to go, he went. It's kind of what Linda was talking about. What's the damn hurry? What's the hurry? Okay, I'll talk a little bit about the mind-body connection as I see it. And I may not say the right words for you. Know that I didn't plan to not say the right words for you. Just going to use the best I can. As Sid said, the words are just trying to point in a direction. I couldn't point any better than the direction that Linda pointed, and that Dickon pointed, and that Lily pointed last night. And as Sid pointed, in Missing Link, somebody said, some people think the inside is God, and the outside is the body. And he said, there is no difference. As Dickon so clearly said, and Linda said, there's no difference. It's the same energy in a different disguise. I love what you said, honey, about that. I don't know that I'd heard that it's our first love relationship. If it's the same energy, then it brings with it a loving intelligence. Not just an intelligence, but it brings with it love. If the essence of life is pure love, which to me, you say, well, you can believe anything. Well, maybe it's just a belief, but it just resonates within my whole being that that's true. And what Linda said is really, I think, important, that if I ever say anything that engenders feelings of guilt, believe me, it's not my intention. It's like, I was trying to think of a metaphor this morning. If you see somebody that is constantly going down, has anybody besides me ever turned down a one-way street and had cars coming at you? I have. Yeah, okay. If you see somebody that is prone to do that, or is prone to go into really sharp curves at 80 miles an hour because they ignore the signs that say 25, and it shows this. it seems like a kind, loving thing to try to point out the signs. That means wrong way. It means cars are going to be coming at you. Don't go that way unless you want cars. I'm not telling you shouldn't, but I want you to know the experience that you'll have if you turn down the road where cars are going to come at you. Don't turn down the road that's one way and have cars coming at you and say, well, God's testing me again. No, he's not testing you again. He's trying to let you know not to go down the one-way road. So, I mean, so just common sense would say that if we are in a place of peace, then this physical, we're made of 50 trillion cells approximately, acting as one thing. It makes sense that our state of being, our state of our soul, our state of mind, our state of love or lack of it, our state of stress or lack of it, would affect those 50 trillion cells. And that they would do the best they could to try to wake us up to the fact that we're going the wrong way, that we're heading for a cliff. Like Linda said, she's learned to listen better to that quiet voice that says, you need to rest. Wouldn't that make sense that those 50 trillion cells would try to do that, huh? Now, I know this is about the physical, but the way that that affects those cells, and without going into the whole complication of the whole stress response and all that, there's many places you can learn about that. We've got multiple alarm systems. To me, alarm maybe is too strong. Love letters. I see them more now as love letters. Love letters trying to let us know that we're innocently going the wrong way. Number one is our mood. Has anybody besides me ever noticed that if you get caught up in negative thinking, your mood goes down? Nobody? Because I'm the only one. Oh no. So the idea that your mood going down is a love letter is one that for 41 years of my life I did not know. And I want to make sure of my time. What time do I go to? To 11? Okay. So I didn't know that. And as a result, when my mood started going down, I got scared. Anybody besides me ever gotten scared when your mood went down? And what did I do? Did I do the chipmunk and sit quietly and listen? Not Bill Pettit. He's the man of action. Even when he's out of order. And then I wondered why my mood went down further. And I got more scared. So I sped up a little faster. And I went in and out of depression for 21 years. And I saw 6 psychiatrists. And they were nice people. They were good people. And they wanted to help me. But they didn't know what Sid Banks knew. So there I was with 26 and a half years of education. 800 to 900 lectures on mental illness and mental health, mental illness and medications, and 0 lectures on mental health. And yet when I got board certified in psychiatry, what did they call me? Did they call me a mental illness specialist? No, they called me a mental health specialist. And I had not had 1 lecture on mental health. Pretty silly. The second indicator is our level of tension. Anybody besides me ever notice that when you got lost, your level of tension or anxiety starts to go up? People, I'll wait till I get my microphone here. So, anxiety is a love letter. It's a love letter. It's letting us know to leave our thinking alone until we feel better. It's real simple. It's not complicated. People say, how do you do that? You do it the best you can. Another way I've kind of recently said, well, because that sounds like you're doing something, you're leaving your thinking alone. You know, we're beings, so we're doing something, I guess, but you do as little as possible. You be like the chipmunk. Remember the chipmunk. And the best thing to do, the best direction to point to verbally, I guess, is to get in your life. Because moment to moment in life, we're one of two places. Again, it's not complicated. We're not one of 800 places, and I'm going to list them. I'm going to start listing the 800 places on the board here in just a little bit. I hope you're paying attention when I do so. There's just two places. We're either in our thoughts or we're in our life. That's all there is. We're either in our thoughts or we're in our life. Now, does that mean that when we're in our life, we're not thinking? No. No, we're still thinking. But there's a flow to thought when we're in our life. And we, like Sid says, that place of no thought that even the Buddhists talk about, my understanding is, it means that the personal mind has quieted, so that we have direct access to universal mind, to the mind of God, which is every moment of our life attempting to guide us. And the symptoms are a part of that attempt to guide us, to say, no, not this way. So we've got mood and anxiety. Third thing is the body. Well, the third thing it really is our thinking. If we get stressed out. Does anybody notice that when you get stressed out, you start misplacing your phone, your keys, forgetting appointments? Anybody besides me, does this happen to? Yeah, it's universal, folks. So the third thing that you notice, the third alarm system, is that you notice that your thinking's not really clear. It seems jumbled. It seems confusing. And what did I do for 41 years when that happened? I went to the one tool in my toolbox. It was called analysis. Anybody else ever had that tool in their toolbox? My son has a construction business. You can imagine his business wouldn't go too well if he only had one tool. If he opened up and there was a hammer, everything would start looking like a nail. But that's the way I was. All I had was analysis. Woody Allen made some funny movies, and about 25 years ago he made a movie called Sleeper. And he woke up from being asleep for 20 years. And his first comments, he woke up, he said, 20 years? Hell, I could have been halfway through my analysis. Analysis is kind of like, I don't know if you've ever gone to these, I don't know if they even have them anymore, these greyhound races where the greyhounds race. They're very fast, and they have this rabbit that the greyhounds keep thinking they're going to catch. And it's calibrated to always be just so far ahead of the lead greyhound, and they're never going to catch it. Anybody ever, besides me, who felt that when you're analyzing? I'm getting close. The rabbit's in sight. I almost had its tail. Lots of luck, right? The fourth one is the physical. I mean, I think Dickon mentioned it briefly that if we went to visit a friend and they had accidentally left a burner on their electric stove, and we got talking and put our hand on the burner, is it a good thing or a bad thing that I suddenly feel extreme pain? It's a good thing, because I immediately pull my hand away and I limit the damage to the cells and the tissue of my hand. So one of the, and I could tell you the physiology, and you know, they're learning more and more about how we become more sensitive to experiencing pain when we're stressed. And it has to do with changing the microbiota in our bowel, which in our intestines, which goes back to our brain and literally lowers the pain threshold. So we experience pain where when people are in a good state of mind, they don't experience pain. Again, why is that a love letter? Because it's letting us know that we're going towards the wrong way. We're going to where there's lots of potholes and even a cliff at the end. If we don't hear those signals, then before we know it, we're having sleep problems. Anybody besides me ever had a sleep problem? Yeah, me too. It's universal. Because when people get stressed, we pour noradrenaline into our bodies. We do a lot of things, and we talked last night about the inflammatory process, that it's a SWAT team. If you ever want to Wikipedia something, do it when you're in a good mood, or else you'll get really bummed out. Go to Wikipedia and do inflammation. Inflammation. My kids used to hate it when I'd give them the Latin roots of words. They'd say, "Dad, we don't care." I'd say, "But it's important." They said, "No, watch my lips. We don't care." The word inflammation means to set on fire, to be on fire. And it is a wonderful, powerful 5-stage thing, which I'm not going to bore you with right now, partially because I don't remember all 5 stages, or else I might do it anyway. But it's a SWAT team that goes in when there's injury, and it cleans up the injured tissue, and it gets it out of there, and then it starts the healing process. It's incredible gift. But when it's done its work, it's supposed to leave. You want a SWAT team around when you need a SWAT team. You don't want a SWAT team around when you don't need a SWAT team. Because innocent bystanders get killed. There's collateral damage. And when we constantly in a state of stress, now again, this is tricky to talk about, and I try to take this heed, but just the facts. Facts are that people with post-traumatic stress disorder die on the average about 25 years earlier than their peers, if they stay in that state of mind. Now, Viktor Frankl came out of the death camps, 3.5 years in the death camps, and he lived to be 92 and wrote 16 books. So it's not destiny, folks. Where there's understanding, There can be let me say that word again, complete healing. Always, never broken, nothing lacking. People that have the diagnosis, and I say that have the diagnosis because it's just a construct. Schizophrenia is a construct. Everybody that has that label, if you really listen to the story, they got to a place in their life where their world that they were living in was so painful that they had to go to another world. The world they went to might not be perfect, but it was better than the world they were in their head at the time. And it kept them alive. The same way with manic episodes. Without telling you a lot of stories, many of them you've heard on my podcast, I can't tell you how many times I've heard people's story of mania that saved their life because suicide had become a real fact. Sometimes it saved multiple lives because they were so depressed they were going to take other people's lives and then their own. So I'm not kidding about these things that we call symptoms and even mental illnesses as being love letters. They're trying to wake us up. Here's a metaphor that I think most of us can identify with. And we often use mommy, I'm going to use daddy. So because daddies can just get just as preoccupied as mothers, and and we more and more are taking some responsibility for childcare. So daddy's there. It can be me when I was totally engrossed in me, and now I'm about 3% less engrossed in me, which is, that 3%'s made a big difference. So I'm totally engrossed in my son, now 42, let's say that he's 3 or 4 years old, and he's trying to get my attention. And what does a child do? A child doesn't immediately scream or yell usually. They know. Daddy, I didn't hear anything, did you? Daddy? I didn't hear anything. Daddy? And I'm not going to do it into this because it's Daddy! What are you doing, Dan? We don't raise our voice in our house. Right? Haven't I taught you better? Trying to get my attention. These love letters keep getting stronger and stronger in an attempt to get our attention. I have a good friend who wrote a book called Perfect Misfortune. He was recently on my Why Understanding the Mind is Vital to Your Brain-Body Connection. His name is Alan Flood. It's called Perfect Misfortune. And I'll tell the story and then I'll go back to what Linda said, because Alan would be the first one to say that the goal is always spiritual healing, peace of mind, period. That's the best conditions for other things to happen, but the goal is peace of mind. People get it in the idea, if I can get rid of these symptoms, then I would have peace of mind. No. If you get peace of mind, there's a good chance the alarms won't have to be going off to try to move you in that direction, that you found peace of mind. Alan wrote this book called Perfect Misfortune, and Alan was one of a group of people that Roger Mills took over to Salt Spring Island to St. Mary's thing over there in 1978, 5 years after Sid had his experience. And he sat there and he heard something profound, and he actually interviewed Sid for his master's thesis, which I've got a copy of. And then he said, I got caught up in life. Anybody besides Alan and I ever got caught up in life and forgot you were connected to spirit? Nobody? Okay, it's okay. He said, I got caught up in life and I forgot what I knew. Until the symptoms of multiple sclerosis hit me. And I woke up and I remembered what was really important in life. And it saved my life. Now, isn't that interesting? Multiple sclerosis saved my life. If he would have gotten frightened by the multiple sclerosis, by the symptoms, instead of thanking for being woke up, do you think it might have had a different ending than 38 years? He says it nibbles at me, but he can still go down the ski slope once. He said, I love to ski. I used to be able to go all day, days in a row. I can just do it once now, but that's a glorious run down the ski run. Do you have your program? Does anybody have your program? Right in front of the program, you have a quote. Would you, is it okay? Thank you. You have a quote from Mr. Banks, and I was going to ask you, Dickon, because I asked Elsie and I asked his widow if they know where this came from, this quote. And did you ever, in all the tapes, because I've never seen this quote. I mean, I'm not saying, it sounds like something Sid would say. Did you hear it on one of the old tapes or anything? Did you, when you were doing that? Or?
I think I might have it.
Do you?
So I can check.
Well, that'd be great, because it certainly sounds like something that Sid would say. And it's truth, it resonates, doesn't it?
Yeah.
People have read this. If the only thing people learned, I didn't bring my glasses either, was not to be afraid of their own experience, this alone would change the world. Dickens said that the other day. He said, because why? Because the only experience that we can have is a thought-created experience. Now, I'm not going to go into the physiology, but we couldn't do that, which they can in some cultures regularly, do things like C-sections with hypnosis. If it was just sensory. It's where our consciousness is, right? So if we were just not afraid, if we knew, as Dickon pointed out, that the only experience we can have is a thought-created experience. And the other thing he pointed to, and many people have pointed to, is that it's ephemeral. It's ephemeral. It's like the kaleidoscope. You can't hold on to a thought. If you really want to hold on to a thought, I had somebody once said, if somebody came to me and said, I don't have pencil or paper, but I've got to remember this thought for the next hour and a half. Do you have any trick to remember for an hour and a half? I said, well, actually I do. I usually don't have tricks, but I said, I do. I want you, if you, as hard as you can, try to get that thought out of your head for the next hour and a half. It'll still be there with you an hour and a half from now. You don't have to worry about forgetting it. True or not true? It's true. Because it can't leave when you got hold of it, telling it to get the hell out of it. What Dickon pointed to was that if we are not frightened by and Sid talked about, if we're not frightened by our experience, it will pass, and something else will come, and we'll access something, and we'll find that there is nothing that we're not given to experience, to go through gracefully. And to the degree that we start to have that level of understanding, fear starts to drop away. If we, to the degree that we start to know, and it's not, again, it's not beating the hell out of yourself if, oh, I haven't learned that yet, and I've been around, it's gratitude for what you have learned. It's going to carry you forward. But to the degree that we start to see that we will be okay no matter what falls away is fear of what might happen. Because that's the only, right? If I'm not afraid of what's going to happen, even the worst thing that I can think of, I know that I will come through that I'll be guided spiritually through that. Then it allows me to be present in my life. That's why children have so much fun, is because they show up for their life at the same time it's going on. A novel idea, isn't it? Sid said, you know, for 27 years I've been trying to help people live in the only place that exists now. Tough job. So, my friend Ophir, and he's made it clear that, I mean, I could say without it, but Ophir is a wonderful human being. And Ophir was in the Second Lebanon War, and such happens in war where people are killing people. He was in a company of 10 people, and all 9 of his colleagues were killed. They were hit with an attack, and he was the medic, so he went from one to another trying to save somebody's life with his eyeball hanging out of his head. And he was unable to save any of his 9 colleagues. So understandably, he went into a deep depression, and he went into what we call post-traumatic stress disorder, which means that the person doesn't have the understanding to be free from the memories that get triggered. They really experience them as real, even though they're not happening now, and that there can become an understanding to that. I want to tell you that. So he, Rabbi Chaim Levine, started an organization called Brothers for Life. It's worth Googling. You'll see Chaim and Ophir on it if you Google. It's about a 3-minute thing. BFL, Brothers for Life. They started with 27 members. We went to a kibbutz on the Mediterranean there and worked with 27 combat injured soldiers with PTSD for a weekend, and then I was there for 13 days, and we did a lot of individual work. And Ophir eventually, through further work or further learning, being a student, and he actually did the first translation of the Missing Link, of Sid Banks's Missing Link, and he now has a degree in psychology, and he's in a 2-year fellowship in child and adolescent psychology. So he's doing well, and I say that because we're doing a course that we're making with veterans, a veteran from the United States, a veteran from UK, Ophir from Israel, and Judy Sedgman and I putting this course together using the Missing Link. And on one of the things we were recording, Ophir told this story. Some of you have heard it, I'm sure, but I'm sure many haven't. But it's this to me brings this to life if people were just not afraid of their experience. So Ophir and 2 of his friends decide to go to Barcelona. And they go to Barcelona from Tel Aviv, and they hadn't realized that it was a national holiday. And they stepped out of the airport, and the rockets and the fireworks were going off, and the explosions. I guess there were fireworks last night. In my dream, they were cannon fire. And I woke up and I said, well, they're not shooting back. It looks like we're okay. Because it was one blast after another. They walked out, and the rockets were going off, and the fireworks were going off. And listen, folks, I think Dickon made a point of that. a good percentage of our thinking is not conscious, not aware of it, but we feel the feeling when they get touched, and we just know that, okay, it's time to be a chipmunk and get quiet and listen and wait. So Ophir walks out, and this fireworks are going off, and suddenly, not through conscious awareness or choice, his heart is going 160 miles an hour. 160 beats per minute. His breathing, he's perspiring. He's ready for what? He's ready for a rocket attack. Because that's what his brain thinks is happening. Without understanding, can you imagine how that could have turned into a very sad thing? He would have gotten frightened and got afraid, right? And he would have, what, engaged his personal mind to try to do something at a time that he had no business. Some of you have seen me, once we lose that place of ease and we're in a state of upset, and it doesn't matter how just, does anybody besides me I've always been justified for being upset in my own mind. Everybody always is. But when we're there, it's like we're 5 feet underwater with a 3-foot snorkel. How good an idea is it to take a deep breath when you're 5 feet underwater with a 3-foot snorkel? What percentage of the time will you have a bad experience? It's 100%, folks. I'm going to tell you a secret answer. It's 100% bad experience. Hell, if it was 60-40, I might go for it every once in a while. So Ophir is experiencing this, but he's bringing with it an understanding. And he said, Bill, I didn't even think about it. I sat down and I stayed quiet. I didn't try to do anything. In 5 minutes, his pulse was normal, his breathing was normal. He was no longer perspiring. And he said, I felt a deep level of calm. And in that deep level of calm, I looked up at the fireworks and I said, is this cool or what? And he and his buddies did not take the next plane back to Tel Aviv. They went and had a really nice weekend together in Barcelona. Does that make this statement come alive to you? One of the things that happens when you go to a new town as a clinical psychiatrist, and I'm not doing that, I stopped in December of 2018, about 10 months ago. One of the things that happens when you go to a new place is that people come to see you in that town that have not been able to be helped by anybody else. Because they're still they want to find peace of mind. So I was doing a group with the first time I went to Aberdeen, South Dakota, and I had a group of about 11 people. And I did this. I said, if this is like a 40-story penthouse, in our feeling level, people that live, everybody has fluctuations, and people are always saying that. Well, we're always going to go up and down, but it's a big difference to be going up and down up there, and to be going up and down down here. Does that make sense? This person up here, Mother Teresa, I didn't know her, but in her worst day, in her worst mood, I suspect she was better than most of the people down here. So this person is going up and down, and they've got a high feeling level, and they've got a high level of understanding. And the person down here has a low feeling level and a low feeling of understanding. And at the risk down here, there's a researcher named Corey Keyes that talks about 18% are in the United States, about 18% of people are thriving about 50% of people are what they call stressed but okay. I'm okay. Yeah, but I'm really stressed, but I'm okay. I want you to know that I'm okay. I mean, Dickon in his humbleness sharing with us that he was doing 4 hours a day of meditation, or many people do. As long as I do my 2 hours of yoga, my hours of qigong, and my hour of something else, mindfulness, and nothing wrong with any of that, but it's taken away from life, right? So down here, and then there's 32% of people that are languishing. Down here, this person in a good mood is thinking, he's a hitman. He says, Pettit's birthday is tomorrow. I'm supposed to take him out today, but it's his birthday. I'll let him have his birthday, and I'll take him out the day after his birthday so his family and he will have good memories. In his low mood, he said, I'm not supposed to take Pettit out till tomorrow, 2 days from now, but today's his birthday. If they think they're going to have good memories of his birthday, they're mistaken, because I'm taking him out today. You with me? People who live up here occasionally will wake up in the morning and they're down here. Any of you really wise people ever had that happen? And you wonder, you've tried both sides of the bed and they keep saying it's the wrong side of the bed, and you're trying to try the ends and that doesn't work either. Now, what's interesting, and we'll take this one step at a time, the people that live down here, they wake up frequently and they feel really nice. And you know what the first thought is? Because they're carrying, now they're a higher feeling level, but they have a low level of understanding of how the system works. So what do you think one of the first thoughts comes when they wake up feeling good? I'm sure this has never happened to any of you. What do you think happened? What is one of the first thoughts? Because of time, I'll give you your answer. The answer is, this won't last. Besides that, I don't deserve to feel this good, because I'm really not a nice person. And a lot of bad things have happened in my life that make it impossible for me to stay in this nice feeling. So, and then they say, see, I was right. Anybody besides me ever done this? Now this person here, guess what their first thought is? Oh, the first thought, so for this person, is this won't last. What do you think the first thought for this person is that wakes up? It's the same thing. This won't last. I've just gotten caught up in some thinking. If I can just remember that God did not give me 2 mouths and 1 ear, He gave me 2 ears and 1 mouth. So I think I'll keep my mouth shut for a while, because I'm not very smart right now. And I'll leave my thinking alone. I think I listened to this podcast by this Dickon Bettinger guy. He said, leave it alone. And then they get to say, see, I was right. I looked out at the group, and a number of the people's faces looked almost ashen. And I said, what's going on? They said, I've done that. The people that had been in and out of the state hospital 4 or 5 times said, that's happened to me. That happens to me fairly regularly. I wake up in a nice feeling. And then I say, this can't last. But for the understanding, and that's what's so wonderful about what we have to share, folks. It brings hope to people. There is no person that doesn't want to be at peace. If you ever see something that looks like resistance, it's lack of hope. And how to help people to listen? You love them. You love them and you listen to them. When people feel truly listened to, they feel loved, and then they're ready to hear something. So remember all of this. There'll be a test later tonight. Thank you very, very much.